Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, as all the time. And welcome again to the fourth session of this virtual learning exchange for CTI under the Ocean Governance project. So our session that is starting right now is targeting a very, very important topic. And I'm sure that it's going to be very interesting, the exchanges we will have. As I presented yesterday, one of the thematic topics we select for the Ocean Governance Project is around the protection of certain migratory species. So we had experience in the past of working on marine mammals, and you will have next session targeting this topic. And we wanted to add another group of interesting species, especially from the perspective of the managers of marine protected areas. This group of species are marine turtles, and we not only target the individuals, the animals, but the habitats as well for their protection. So those are critical issues for the managers in the areas in which those animals are having important parts of their life cycle, either for nesting, either for feeding, etc. So the session today, we will explore different experiences in different areas, 3 of them around the Coral Triangle, and another one far away from you, which is in the Mediterranean. And we will hear our speakers, how they are implementing different kinds of actions, sometimes actions on the ground in specific sites in protected areas, sometimes actions connecting different protected areas that are not in the same area, but they share the same population of certain species of marine turtles, but also other actions that are related to the connection with the local populations, with the society, that is the critical point to really ensure a good protection. So that we will have also as well some interesting input on how we continue doing those important protection actions under difficult times, such the moment we are still having with the COVID-19 pandemic. So you will see that our speakers are very passionate people. They really love what they do to protect marine turtles. And I just stopped my brief introduction, and I will give the floor to the first of them, which is a presentation from, as I say, from the Mediterranean, from MedPAN, and how managing marine turtles in the Mediterranean marine protected areas. So the presentation will be done by Dr. Susan Gallon. And Dr. Susan Gallon, she's the scientific officer of MedPAN. So Susan, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Puri. So I'm just going to share my screen.
Yeah, while you are doing, I just will remind our audience that we will have a time for exchanges for questions and answers and contributions after the presentations. And that is preferably you should do these contributions by asking the floor to just raise your hand in the system of the Zoom, better than in the chat, because this will help the translators to translate any question in any of the different languages. And also remind all of you that you have the interpretation button down in the screen, so you can select your preferred language for listening at the presentations. So Susan, the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you, Puri. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. So I'm really pleased. Thank you for inviting me today to share our experience here at MedPAN and providing you with an overview of how we manage marine turtle in the Mediterranean. And just briefly, MedPAN is a network of marine protected area managers that are dedicated to halt the loss of biodiversity in the Mediterranean Sea. So our mission at MedPAN is to help, contribute, support to achieve a representative, connected, integrated, and effectively managed network of Mediterranean marine protected area. We do that by supporting an active networking of MPA managers, and not only MPA manager, but all actors that are actively involved in marine protected area to increase knowledge and capacity of MPAs while also supporting MPA policy implementation and funding. So MedPAN today gathers around 131 organizations. We present in 21 countries around the Mediterranean, and we have more than 110 represented MPA in our network directly. So since 2017, MedPAN, that exists since 2010, has started working more closely as a network towards the protection for marine turtle. And this is because across the Mediterranean, there was many managers that had marine turtle on their agenda. Either marine turtle was justifying the designation of the site as an MPA, or marine turtle was subject to specific conservation measure in the MPA. And that's what the map shows you, the sites around the Mediterranean. So not only sites, but marine protected area that are working on marine turtle. So that's the latest data that we have from 2020. And so we started developing a working group on marine turtle, inviting key manager around the Med that was working on that subject to gather together and help develop a strategy for the Mediterranean on that topic. Because as Puri said, marine turtle move around, and it's good to work together towards the protection of that species. So activities supported at MedPAN by the Marine Turtle Group are focused around three axes. First, we want to improve the knowledge, knowing who is working on turtle where, but also what important area for turtles, what effective conservation strategy might be happening around the Med. So we have a database for that. And also every 4 years, we gather data to update that database and address new gaps and challenges. From that database, we develop capacity building strategy, and that's through different tools such as experience sharing workshop, exchange visit, best practice training. And for that, we invite people across the Mediterranean MPA, but also often beyond the Mediterranean. And then thirdly, we also advocate at regional and international level to get the support from different policy for the long-term conservation of marine turtle. So we've got a different project that directly support our activities, either European projects such as Interreg, where we got different MPAs directly working on marine turtle through that project. We also have one big project, the conservation of marine turtle in the Mediterranean region, that have been funded by the MAVA, a foundation for many years that really help get actors working on marine conservation around the Med together, because we're working more closely with MPAs, but this project gathers over NGO partners and public institutions working throughout the Mediterranean beyond MPAs and at different levels. And we've got another Cogito project that also try to link the two sides of the Mediterranean, the north that is quite European and the south, to really develop capacity and share experience across the two. So we developed a guide to monitor marine turtle in MPAs. Again, with all our partners around the Mediterranean and beyond. And we organized only last year a webinar to introduce the guide online. Like all our projects throughout the pandemic had to shift from, we were used to organize lots of face-to-face events, and we had to shift and adapt our skills to online tools. And so we organized that webinar. That was a great success. We had 180 registered participants from around 29 countries to look at that guide that we developed and exchange with us about our experience and also the tools we're developing. And just now, we're also developing training module dedicated to marine turtle conservation across Mediterranean MPA that is based on this guide, but also beyond. We've also looking at other tools for MPA manager. Again, we had to adapt throughout the pandemic. So first, when we developed this training center, so those are permanent training center in marine protected area across the Mediterranean that are dedicated to some subjects. So some MPAs are dedicated to marine turtle conservation, others are fishery and other thematics. And we had planned to host face-to-face training in those permanent training center we are developing in some MPAs in the Med. But because of the pandemic, again, we had to readapt. And so the first training has been slightly shifted, and also deadline has shifted due to the pandemic. And we are just finishing developing an online training on getting started with marine turtle conservation across Mediterranean MPAs. That online training will be held early 2022 online, but we are still hoping that soon we'll be able to start again our face-to-face training, and one will be dedicated to the protection of marine turtle nesting sites. We had over 90 applications received. When we organize this training, we invite applicants across the Med to apply to it, and then there's different selection criteria based on the urgency of the applicant to acquire those new skills and knowing how he's going to acquire it in his MPA, but also because they hope to be permanent, this training. Year after year, we hope that little by little we'll address the need of this training throughout the Mediterranean. So also MedPAN recently supported the development of the important marine turtle area, and you might have heard from it. It was carried out by the IUCN Specialist Group on Marine Turtle. And the goal of developing those important marine turtle area criteria and process was to have a standardized and globally applicable criteria, which ensure consistency throughout region and marine turtle species. And also to use that knowledge, that data, to have the same process throughout, so you could compare the important area identified throughout different regions, while still taking into account the regional diversity and specificity. So INTA should reflect the diverse conservation status of marine turtle population, but they're really based on biological and biogeographical consideration based on science and knowledge. And this, we contributed to that process because here in the Med, we were at a point, especially through the MAVA project, that gathers a different partner working on the conservation marine turtle in the Mediterranean. We were asking ourselves that question about, are we doing the right thing at the right place? And so having those important marine turtle area mapped up on the map of the Mediterranean is going to help us assess, if we're doing the right thing where it's needed and how we can fill the gap, if any. So I'm pleased to say that those important marine turtle guidelines are finalized just last August. And we can send you a link with those, and there's all the specificity in it. So I will stop here for now. I'm happy to answer questions. I try to briefly give you that big overview, but I will be happy to go back on any of these points to provide more detail. So thank you again.
Thanks a lot, Susan. Be sure that we will have questions. I'm sure that the audience is very interested in asking more about the developments for marine turtle protection. So let's move to the next speaker, and I'm happy to see that we can see your face, Risa. So great. So the next speaker is Risa Araceli Salinas, and she works for the Wildlife Resources Division in Philippines for the Biodiversity Management Bureau. And Risa will present the efforts that are done currently in the Philippines for the marine turtle conservation. You know, it's the whole country have marine turtles. So, but those efforts are even bigger when we have difficult times as the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think her presentation can also be very interesting in terms of seeing how the humans, we need to adapt to different challenges when we talk about protecting nature. So Riza, the floor is yours. You can share your screen.
Okay, thank you, Puri. Good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone see my screen now?
Yes, we see perfectly.
Okay. Thank you. So again, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. I am Risa Salinas. I am a veterinarian. I work with the Biodiversity Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources of the Philippines. And the DENR is the country's agency responsible for the conservation, management, protection, and the development of the proper use of the country's environment and natural resources, which includes managing protected areas as well as conservation of wildlife. So my presentation would deal with what happened to the Philippines or what happened to marine turtle conservation at the time of the COVID pandemic. So this is roughly around a 2-year time period. So the world came to a standstill. The world seemingly stopped when COVID-19 came about. So we lost a lot of lives. Sadly, we lost friends and maybe even relatives and family members. The economy was hurt, but on the brighter side of things, the environment was healed. So I just took one photo from Google, sorry, but this is the skyline of Metro Manila. The one on the left is the one before the pandemic, and the one on the right is during the pandemic. So there was fresher air, there was better water quality, and people get to hear birds chirping in their gardens more frequently than before. So during at the start of the pandemic, we saw the entire Philippines saw an increased sightings of marine turtles. What you see in the screen now is are just two of the areas that we noted that the fisher folks reported to us that it's the first time that they got to see these huge marine turtles in their area. So the two photos on the left is in Antique, that's mid region of the Philippines, while the two photos on the rightmost are were found in up north of the Philippines. So it seemed like the turtles or the marine turtles had the entire ocean for themselves. There was less boat traffic, and there were less tourists, so they had everything for themselves. So, and also it was also during this time when citizen science became a welcome idea to all of us in the Philippines. A lot of people started reporting, private individuals started reporting sightings of marine turtles, they being caught in fish traps, or mere sighting of turtles found along the shore. Okay, so but this was the start of citizen science in the Philippines. We even had we even had a leatherback turtle that was found nesting in Davao Oriental. This is one of the regions in down south of the Philippines. It's the first time that this was seen and reported and recorded in the Philippines. So we're so proud of this. But we never, sadly, in spite of the citizen science, we never got to find out what happened to the eggs. But we are in the process of finding out what happened to the nesting. And other than the marine turtles, more other marine mammals were also being reported sighting encountered in areas that they never saw it before. So just like this, the photo on the right, the dolphins and orcas reappearing in Bohol waters. So this is mid region of the Philippines. But we also got to see some whale sharks in Manila Bay. So this is Manila Bay is just um, the bay just within the metro. So it's a welcome sight for everyone. So unfortunately, the COVID pandemic also triggered online illegal wildlife trade. So as you can see in the photos, all sorts of wildlife were being sold online. So you can see some from cats, from Bengal cats to sailfin lizards to even marine turtle eggs. And we had one post of marine turtle eggs being seized, going or being smuggled into Sabah, Malaysia. So, but we had, or the DENR has wildlife enforcement officers who continued to do their job in conducting surveillance, cyber surveillance. So they were able to do this in following quarantine and health protocols. In spite of all this, allow me to share that the Philippines was able to pass and issue several policies in the effort of standardizing everything related to marine turtle conservation. So first, um, we we adopted the rescue and response manuals. So we had a manual for marine turtles, we had a manual for marine mammals, and I just failed to include here. There's also a standard manual on sharks and rays. So the purpose of this is to ensure that proper response is carried out on marine turtle and marine mammal, marine wildlife incidents, because we all know that if untrained people get to respond to strandings, it's sometimes even better than simply just not doing a response. But we had this manual so everyone would be able to follow. It's a step-by-step process on what to do whenever they get to encounter marine wildlife. And then we also had a guideline on the protection of marine turtle nesting habitats. You see, sometimes people, well, who wouldn't be ecstatic whenever they get to see a marine turtle nesting in their backyard in the beach, right? So, but then this sort of triggered some people um, wanting to have their area immediately declared as a critical habitat or a sanctuary with just one incident, with just one marine turtle nesting incident. But we all know how tedious the process is of having an area declared as a protected area, as a critical habitat, even as a sanctuary. So this policy, these guidelines, provided options and guidelines for the protection of this marine turtle nesting site. So we created criteria or as to when an area gets to be declared as a as whatever either as a sanctuary, as a critical habitat, or even as a protected area. So this guideline also provided forms, standard forms that we want everyone to follow, well, in the Philippines, to assess and validate nesting grounds, what to ask people during interviews, threats, identification of threats, and those sorts of standard forms. Another policy that we were able to send out, and issue is this joint memorandum circular on the rules and regulations governing the conduct of marine wildlife tourism interaction in the Philippines. It's an interagency, so you would see there four logos of four departments in the Philippines: the tourism, the agriculture, the local interior and local government, and the DENR. let me just inform everyone that the development of this policy was the Philippines compliance to the CMS Resolution 12.23, which urged the parties to adopt measures and protocols aimed in ensuring tourism activities do not negatively affect species population anywhere within their migratory range, and at the same time do not pose risk to human health and well-being. So the guidelines, this guidelines applies to all marine wildlife in their natural habitat. So when we plain and simple, in their natural habitat, this governs dugongs, cetaceans, sharks, rays, and marine turtles in water and in on land during nestings and hatchling emergence. So the guidelines also included for protocols and procedures for aircrafts and seacrafts. Okay. However, it's with sad note that I would like to share with everyone that a sad story is somehow unfolding in the western coastline of the Philippines. You would see on the graph that for a period of 2, 4, 6, 7 years, there was a sudden increase of stranded turtles found along a very particular area in the Philippines. That's in El Nido, Palawan, the one that you see encircled with red. And you would notice that from just plain 6 last year, we suddenly had 46 in September, and now it's already November. I think we already have about 452 or 53 stranded turtles. Not most of it are found already dead, or some are already decomposing, but very few were still alive. We were able to rehabilitate some of them, and we got to release them, but most of them were really weak and already dead. Our we're grateful that we have organizations and colleagues and conservation supporters, the 10 Nuts Group, as well as LAMAVE, the Large Marine Vertebrate Research Institute, who are assisting us in the conduct of this monitoring, as well as the conduct of post-mortem examination on the stranded turtles. Most of them are also green turtles. Very few are hawksbills, and about 7% of those of the recovered turtles were no longer identifiable as to their species. Only only 7 of these 74 individuals were found with plastic in their gastrointestinal tract. And before I end my presentation, I would like to pose the question of asking everyone who's present here today, have you seen or have you encountered the same situation in your area, especially those who are together with us in the western coastline within the South China Sea? Let me share my email. So in case you have experienced something similar, I welcome your information on this. And with that, thank you so much for your attention. Thank you, Puri.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa. Very interesting presentation, connecting all the different levels of action that are needed to really protect these marine turtles. So thanks a lot. I am sure that we will have comments and questions from the public. And thank you for being on time as well. So let's move to our next speaker, which is Christine Madenhoff. And Christine, she's a conservationist, especially for marine conservationists, and she was for one of our partners of the Ocean Governor, not partners, one of the actors of our consortium, which is WWF. So WWF has many actions for a long time on marine turtles, but there is a specific program that is called Protecting Turtles for Tomorrow, a marine turtle use and trade initiative of WWF in the Coral Triangle, under the Coral Triangle program. So Christine, the floor is yours.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Let me just share my screen with you. Okay, making sure everybody can see that.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. So thank you for having me today. I really appreciate being part of this learning exchange. Wanted to talk to you today about a marine turtle use and trade initiative, but first to really acknowledge that this is one program of work amongst many that our WWF network partners in with multiple organisations, governments, universities and communities across the globe. And this is just some of the locations that we work, and try to categorise those into some different tasks. And you'll see there's protection of habitats, so MPAs, trade and wildlife crime work, bycatch and fisheries management, training workshops and the like. So we have worked in turtle conservation for more than 50 years now. And as I said, I just wanted to focus on one of the particular threats today. If I can get my computer to work, my apologies. Barbara, I might need to get you to drive.
Okay, 1 second, I'm opening it.
Sorry, this just happened before, and we went out and back in again, and it worked. I'll just try one more time, and then otherwise I might get you to take over if that's okay. No.
Okay, give me a second and I'll launch it, okay?
Awesome, thank you. Apologize, everybody. It worked before and then it didn't work, so I think we're playing with technology
don't worry,
today.
Christy. This happens. That's life.
Wonderful.
Would you please confirm you're seeing the presentation in presentation
Yes.
mode? Yeah.
I can see it. Thank you. If everyone else can.
No, I'm not seeing in full mode. I'm seeing the screen of the presenter, but not the full mode. Anyway, there is a big diapo, a big slide. Yeah, now it's okay.
Okay, we're good to
Perfect.
go. Just say next slide and I'll do it.
Thank you. If we can jump on to the third slide. So next slide, and then one more, please. That's it. So as we're all aware, marine turtles are facing multiple threats across our globe, and because of their life history phase and the biology of the animals, everything from on land and in the water as well. So just one more click, please. So the program I wanted to speak about today was really more about the illegal trade and the direct consumption of turtles and how that does actually interact and link in with bycatch as well. And I wanted to very briefly, and I'm going to have to go through this very rapidly because of time, 3 projects that sit within this marine turtle use and trade initiative. So Shellbank, a turtle use project, and Tripod. And I do see some partners on the call today, and that's lovely to see. Next slide, please. So the Marine Turtle Use and Trade Initiative is a program of work, and it has multiple projects, 20 or 30 projects that are embedded within this program. And our vision is really to safeguard hawksbill turtle populations in Asia Pacific, so they're no longer at risk of extinction and they're no longer targeted for trade. So we've got different elements of work in terms of strengthening conservation management and policy, building community awareness, involvement and support, and working through partnerships so we can reduce that demand and ensure take is legal and sustainable. Next slide, please. So the impact that we're hoping to make within this initiative, and it started in 2018 and we've been building the program since and goes till 2026 and hopefully well beyond. But the idea is to build these better traceability tools build capacity, enhance training and enforcement, drive change in community use and understand the socio-cultural and economic drivers and motivations of use, and also to support stronger decisions and better collaborations and partnerships. Next slide, please. So what does that all really mean? Well, for turtles, if we're looking at use and trade, you can just go up one slide, please. So we're looking at turtle use and trade. Doesn't seem to want to stay. It's a very, very complex issue in that historically, as you'll see in the picture in the background, was very much an open traded industry. Through the CITES that was banned, and finally in the early 1990s. But turtles are used for a variety of reasons, as we all know. They're for subsistence, for traded, for items, but also then for illegal trade. So it's a really complex system to actually unravel, and it needs input at multiple scales. Next slide, please. So this is where the three programs of Shellbank, Turtle Use and Tripod have come into play. Now, Shellbank I'll just quickly talk about, but really the essence of this is to determine population boundaries for conservation management, but also then identify which populations are mostly impacted by the illegal trade so we can better protect them. Next slide, please. So how does this really work? So as I said, one of our first impact items that we're looking to do is to have better traceability tools. So we've been working with NOAA, and we actually developed a way to extract DNA from tortoiseshells. And you'll see there it says on the bottom left-hand corner, cracking the code. That's a report we produced, and I can share that with you all. And there's a scientific manuscript that goes with it. And that describes how we can actually extract that DNA out of those shells. Now, the reason we wanted to do this is so we can actually enable scientists, conservationists, and governments and policymakers to be able to use a different kind of tool to track the illegal trade and using genetics. And you can trace it then from sale back to source. So from the shell back to the wild population that was poached. So then we can help identify which populations are being targeted or poached and those most at risk. So that's one of the elements of Shellbank, is being able to build this traceability tool. Now, for that tool to be able to work means we actually need to coordinate access to existing samples and expand the bank of genetic data for turtles. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got a lovely nesting hawksbill female there. And across the globe, and particularly in Asia Pacific, I'm sure many of you would be very surprised that we don't actually know the genetic makeup of many, many turtles, which populations belong where. So it's a real big gap. So to be able to use this traceability tool, whilst we're developing that, we've also got to develop this bank of data. The other part of Shellbank is also about training in country, building capacity for universities and governments to have the know-how in being able to use genetics, analyze genetic samples, and then embed it as common practice into the law enforcement chain, so that when a turtle is interacted with, a genetic sample can be taken. There's a lab and a government process in place where we can help you identify which population that came from. Next slide, please. So this is a map of our current knowledge. It is slightly outdated because we just received some new data, but all those pie graphs you see are where we have been able to identify a hawksbill population, and we call them haplotypes. So there's these different genetic stocks that exist around Asia Pacific. All the red dots is where we're currently collecting data or have data available. We're about to analyze. COVID threw a bit of a spanner in the works with that. But all the yellow sections that you see is where we actually haven't analysed any data, or there is no data being collected. And if you consider Asia Pacific, that's a really big area that is unanalysed yet. Now, since we started the program, we have doubled the genetic bank of data of wild tissues, which is wonderful. Next slide, please. So we anticipate tripling that by next year, but even tripling it, we've still got a long way to go. So this is where we would love to work more closely with all of you, with partners in marine protected areas, to be collecting genetic samples and contributing to this bank of data. This is a quick graph of just showing how it works, how we've mapped out Shellbank. So there's two elements and ways that we can do it, obviously through the shell and confiscated samples, or samples that are donated or surrendered by citizen scientists or the public, and then also collecting those nesting samples. and working with laboratories, building the capacity in country so they don't have to be sent overseas, and then really harnessing and sharing that data so we can identify those trade hotspots, look at where those conservation boundaries are, because we all know our turtles migrate. Even though they may be nesting in your country, they're more than likely residing or feeding elsewhere in another. So we can really help to define those boundaries and then identify those populations where the most effort and marine protected areas can then be enacted as well. Next slide, please. So we do have and are part of a steering committee for the Asia Pacific Marine Turtle Genetic Working Group. And I see there's 1 or 2 colleagues on this call today who are actually part of that working group. We're expanding that to the Pacific next year. So there's an opportunity that if you're interested in genetics and working in genetics to become part of that working group and learn these tools. And that's part of our program in the training and building capacity as well. Next slide, please. So the other project that we're doing too is called the Turtle Use Project. And this is really a project to help understand the socio-cultural and economic pressures on hawksbills and how we can use that information to work with community groups to instill some other nature-based solutions and reduce their reliance on marine turtle populations. Next slide, please. This project was really born out of the Nature Conservancy. Hats off to them. We work closely with them in the Pacific. They enacted a similar survey and we expanded on it to include a lot of the drivers and motivation and cultural aspects to their survey. But in Solomon Islands, they did this study a few years ago and were able to pinpoint and identify hotspots of where turtles were poached and also where they were targeted and for what uses. From that survey, they actually estimated that green and hawksbill turtles are annually harvested of about 10,000 up to 20,000 a year just out of the Solomon Islands. So that really started raising sort of some eyebrows in terms of, well, what's doing that to the sustainability of the populations and what does that mean for those turtles that actually don't always reside in Solomon Islands, they're actually traveling to different countries. So we worked with TNC and developed this new survey and starting to roll that out in partnership with SPREP. We're rolling it out in Papua New Guinea. So our WWF office there is working to, at the moment, conduct those surveys. WWF Fiji office is actually working in Fiji and there's some other local NGOs working in Tonga. So hopefully by next year, we'll actually have a better picture across the Pacific and again, encourage other groups and partners to join in to roll out these surveys across Southeast Asia as well. So we get a really good understanding of what's happening to those populations. Next slide, please. So again, just a little flow chart of how this works. It's all done by community-based monitors and workshops, so it's very, very ground level. And they participate in those surveys. We've also done an economic valuation survey. Again, I can share the results of that. We just published that last month. All this data has been analysed together to then be able to share back with communities, back with the government, so they can revise and look at the way in which the populations of turtles are being managed in country, what their financial and economic worth is, to be able to work towards some better sustainable solutions for those turtles. Next slide, please. So finally, if I can really rapidly skip through the last program, and this is called Tripod. It's targeting regional investigations for policing opportunities and development. And this is a more confined program. The other two are more broadly across Asia Pacific and globally if other organizations outside of Asia Pacific are wanting to participate. But this program currently is a little bit more confined. And it's just around the Sulu-Celeber Seas. So looking at, next slide, please. Looking at that shared territory around Malaysia, Philippines, and Indonesia. And the reason that this area was chosen is because it's a known and highly trafficked area. And it's also part of the Coral Triangle program. It has one of the most spectacular and world's best biodiversity. So this is a real hotspot area that needed a little refined focus and updated information on what's being trafficked and how we can actually help decrease that trafficking there. So the idea behind this program is to improve counter wildlife trafficking enforcement, reduce the trafficking actually in the target area, and hence all the care and repatriation of confiscated animals as well. Next slide, please. So the strategy and partnership for this program is with Freeland, WWF and I4. And we've got 3 key objectives and elements in this program. One is to build national task forces and tools. So it had started in March, and I again know there's some colleagues here on the call who have been part of this program already. And the first part of the program was to undertake rapid assessments to identify what are the gaps and needs in law enforcement to be able to better tackle wildlife trade and counter wildlife trafficking in the region. From that, those assessments are going to inform the development of national training. So there'll be a national training for counter national organised crime called CTOC training, if some people are aware. That will be held in Malaysia, Philippines and Indonesia early next year. And from that, we'll build national task forces. We'll also be developing rapid reference guides and hopefully nice little easy lift out field guides as well that can be used in transboundary enforcement. From there, we're wanting to then connect those national task forces together to create a regional task force. And that regional task force will then be provided with on-the-job joint exercises, instructor trainings, developing standard operating procedures, and actually be provided different technologies and tools to be able to ID and trace wildlife trafficking. And the final element is the care of confiscated wildlife, with stakeholders and partners will also be trained on how to repatriate, being provided with species ID and the best practices around care and confiscation. Next slide, please. So this program is going to provide a toolkit, which then we're really excited about being able to then embed and hopefully scale to then other countries and more globally. And so there'll be a CTOC national training and regional on-the-job and instructor course that can be embedded and scaled by the hosting organisation. The wild scan, if people are aware of that, a species ID application, which is being updated as part of this program. As we spoke about Shellbank is going to be part of this program. So the participants will be taught how to trace DNA from shell to wild populations. The care for confiscated wildlife kits and training will be provided and distributed, and there's rapid reference guides as we spoke about. Next slide, please. So the opportunities, and this program runs between March this year to 2023, is that law enforcement officers can be trained or become trainer or facilitators. And we are right at the time where we're actually seeking representation and participation. So if you are interested, please let Veda or I know. And 2, we're actually starting discussions with CTI-CFF, and we introduced this program just recently to the Threatened Species Working Group. And 2, we'd love to have further discussions with the Seascape and Marine Protected Area Working Groups about this program. Hence why I want to take the opportunity to address it today. We also have penciled in some time and in the work plan, hopefully for next year, to continue talking with CTI-CFF Regional Secretariat about possible housing and scaling this program. ASIANAPOL has also been reached out to as well. So these tripod tools, we really want them to be available in perpetuity. So they're not just part of a program and then disappear. So there are those opportunities if the CTI, CFF sees value in those to actually really be part of this program in perpetuity and for its longevity and scale. Next slide, please. So what does this all mean? If we come back to a government perspective as well, from a policy and planning perspective, a lot of the work that we have built has been built around the mandates of CMS, CITES, IOC, CTI, CFF, SPREP, RFMOs, whichever acronym you can stick at, in terms of the policy and mandates that governments are responsible to deliver and have been signatory to. So the Shellbank program certainly will support the baseline genetic studies, which is part of the CITES Turtle Decision Mandate. Tripod project can help improve that collaboration, exchange, and the intelligence and data. There is a requirement to establish domestic harvest quotas in CITES turtle decisions. So the Turtle Use Project will provide you and your governments and communities with that baseline information to help make those decisions. And there's also a suggestion in the decisions too, if funded, to undertake the socioeconomic those studies. So we've provided you and can provide you with the platform of those surveys and an implementation guide to do that in country. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up, and hopefully that's all within time, the collaboration offerings is really around major genetic sampling collection across the Asia-Pacific region and beyond, of nesting turtles primarily, but then foraging, bycaught turtles. So fishermen can be trained how to take samples of their bycatch, and that is very valuable information. Stockpiles or sea samples, or surrendered through citizen science. Sharing data, analysing and having the sample know-how, and that is really being helped by our Asia-Pacific Genetic Working Group. I provided the website there too, to help build that in-country capacity, but also develop up those baselines. And those baselines, as we said, is not just to help about use and trade, but also for your conservation management of turtles. So you know which populations you have in country and which countries you share your populations with. The other offering there is to help roll out shell bank. We have been working with the Australian government. We're in conversations with the Philippine, Indonesian, Malaysian governments, and hopefully, fingers crossed, Fiji government soon to come. So rolling out that shell bank is really about genetic sampling, training in the know-how, and helping you embed that in your law enforcement chain. The other offerings are, as I said, being able to provide you with the socio-cultural surveys and the implementation guide to participate in the Turtle Use Project. And altogether, the whole Marine Turtle Use and Trade Initiative and our work and our partnerships with you and many, many others will hopefully help you identify your turtles most at risk for future protection, and fingers crossed, in important marine turtle areas or marine protected areas. Next slide, please. So that's it from me. I appreciate the time, and thank you very much for allowing me to present today. I've got my contact details there as well. Thanks.
Thanks, Christine. Very interesting presentation with a lot of details. And I think that many people may be inspired by these new methodologies to really fight the illegal traffic of endangered species. So thanks a lot. So let's move to the remaining presentation, that in this case comes from Marine Protected Area, which is the Marine Protected Area, the Marine Park in Impie, and Fahar Kuniawan, that he works for the National Marine Protected Area Office in Pekanbaru in Indonesia, will present the efforts that are done in this MPA for marine turtles. So Fahar, the floor is yours. We cannot hear. Activate your micro, please.
Okay, can you hear my voice?
Yes, and now if you
Okay.
can put the full screen for the presentation. Great.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you, Puri, for the opportunity. Good morning, good afternoon, and evening, everyone. Distinguished all speakers and participants, thank you for having me share our experience in protecting sea turtle in PH Marine Park. I am Fajar Kurniawan, PH Marine Park Manager. I will start my presentation with the history and brief information of protecting sea turtle in PH Marine Park. PH Marine Park is one of national marine protected area located in the western part of West Sumatra province on Indian Ocean waters. This MPA is managed by National Marine Protected Area Office, Pekanbaru, under Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. 5 small islands inside of this marine park are the sea turtle habitat. Besides sea turtle, we also conserve coral reef and marine mammals. Before 2013, sea turtle egg trading occurred surrounding West Sumatra province, even though we had ungoverned regulation to prohibit that activity. The problem is some of the egg to be traded came from PH Marine Park. So this condition led us to discuss and try to find the solution with stakeholders. And we came up with some solution. First, all our stakeholders agreed to establish a turtle conservation coordination forum. This forum consists of central government agencies like us, Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, the Conservation Board of Natural Resources from Ministry of Environment, and then local government from province and municipalities, Navy and police. The forum regular meetings are scheduled twice a year for evaluation and readjust the action plan. Second, from 2014, we deploy conservation staff in the several sea turtle habitat. We start doing sea turtle and coastal awareness campaign. Third, starting from 2016, we add more activities such as to collect the sea turtle data and public involvement. Program include academician. Fourth, starting from 2018 until now, we intensify to collect the sea turtle daily data, expand more monitoring sites, improve monitoring tools, capacity building for staff and stakeholders, include community group, expand more public involvement, and expand our network. So by doing this, turtle egg trade on the coast of West Sumatra surrounding our marine park getting suppressed, and turtle egg theft from our marine park can be prevented. We manage PIEH Marine Park by using a zoning system. We divide this area into 4 zones. Core zone is the red one, and then sustainable fisheries zone is the red pattern. Limited utilization zone is the purple one, and the other zone is the green one. There are 6,241 meters of the beaches spread over 5 islands inside our marine park is the sea turtle habitat. We have 2 main turtle monitoring sites, and this marine park is the home for green turtle, housebee turtle, and olive red turtle. In protecting the turtle, we also follow the national action plan made by Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries. So starting from 2016, we conduct collecting data, relocating the egg to semi-natural hatchery, and then establishing main turtle monitoring sites. In the marine park zonation plan, turtle nesting habitat is designated as the core zone. Then starting from 2018, we prepare turtle protection information posters, leaflets, brochures, also post them on our website and social media. We also made program conservation goes to school and goes to community. We do foster and partner with 8 conservation community group. We conduct data collection training for partners and conservation community groups surrounding marine park. And then at 2018, we conduct turtle ecotourism training for partners and conservation community groups surrounding our marine park. At least 8 community groups have already received facility from us, such as boat, tents, tourist lodge, diving equipment, snorkeling equipment, and turtle monitoring toolkit. And starting from 2018, we are collecting turtle daily data at 2 sites of PIEH Marine Park. Besides that, we also do together activities that also correlated with turtle protection as a part of our activities in managing PIEH Marine Park, such as preparing plan, standard and procedure, like MPA zoning plan, MPA management plan, monitoring procedure, utilization procedure. And then we controlling marine park utilization by using permit and carrying capacity, sharing news, data, and information through our website and social media, expanding MPA partnership with community, local government, and other ministry, also private sector. Preventing illegal activity, we do monitoring, controlling, and surveillance in that area. We do it regularly. This activity involving Ministry of Marine Affairs, Fisheries Surveillance Board, Navy, police, and local government. We also involve the coastal communities. Based on our research, green turtle in our marine park has close relation with sea turtle in Andaman Sea. So we assume sea turtle do a migration from our marine park to Andaman Sea. On the map, you can see the red dot that indicates the location sea turtle was landed. The sea turtle landed on the coastal and small islands of West Sumatra region. There is no seagrass in our marine park, but many sea turtle their egg on the small island in our marine park. The number is higher compared to other area. Seagrass itself is located in another place around our MPA, which is managed by local government. So this the reason why we prompt to form the MPA network with local government. This year we made an agreement with West Sumatra Province Conservation Office that manage 6 MPA surrounding our MPA to cooperate in managing MPA, which one of the cooperation's focus is sea turtle protection. To understand more about the turtle in our MPA and its environment, we also made an agreement with Bung Hatta University. In collecting turtle data, we try to improve it better and better. So at 2016 until 2017, we deploy conservation staff in several turtle habitats to prevent turtle egg theft. They only collect the data twice a month, only the number of eggs and hatchling. In this period, we released at least 3,151 hatchling. And start from 2018 until now, we intensify turtle data collection by deploying more conservation staff as enumerators, monitoring the turtle every day, and we expand our monitoring site. Until right now, totally, there are 100,252 hatchling have been released. We are using monitoring guideline from Ministry of Marine Affairs and Fisheries, also WWF, in doing sea turtle monitoring. In monitoring sea turtle in Pieh Marine Park, we collect 29 data indicators, some of it nesting season data and sea turtle sighting probability data, which we can see in the bar and pie chart on the screen. Also data on turtle to be found laying egg of each species on the pie chart. We deployed a trained staff to collect daily data. From 2018 till now, we have already founding 1,458 turtle nets. We also have data on hatchling success, which is shown in the bar and pie chart, as well as the number of hatchling that have been released. Based on our sea turtle data collection, since 2018, at least 97,101 hatchling have been released. The data that we have collected is usable too for tourist operators, such as the best time for turtle landing information from June to July. People who want to go to a hatchling release tour can come in that time. We also train and share the turtle watching code and of conduct as guidance for them. Yeah, we built a partnership with a conservation community group. With them, we do public education, public awareness, and public information program to the children, tourists, coastal community, and protect sea turtle in their habitat, like do data collection, monitoring, controlling, surveillance, turtle kill, and develop alternative livelihood opportunities for local communities. And then there are many tourist attractions that can be generated in Pieh Marine Park. One of it is turtle watching. We conduct several training to the guide and tourism operator to know the procedure in doing that thing. Other partners, like I mentioned before, like university, academician, and then police, Navy, Ministry of Marine Affairs, Fisheries, surveillance agencies, local government, and tourist operator. That's all my presentation. I'm looking forward for any suggestion, and thank you for your attention. Terima kasih. You can reach us through our email, website, social media on the screen. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Fahar. Very interesting on-the-ground activity with the local community, so really targeting the objective from different actions. So now we have 25 minutes, 25 minutes for questions and answers. So if you want to ask to some of our speakers, or you want maybe to add additional comments on you, from your experience, please raise your hand. You have below the button of reactions. You might just press your hand there, and we will give you the floor there. Before I give the floor to the questions, I will just note that if you go to the chat, you will see a document that has been shared by my colleague Barbara. This is a document that was referring the presentation made by Susan at the beginning. These are the important marine turtle areas guidelines for your information, and I think that is worth that you just download the document and you can check. So by the moment, I don't see any hand yet. Hope you will motivate. Yes, I see one. Silvianita from CTC. You have the floor.
Hello, thank you.
Can you identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is Sylvia from Coral Triangle Center. I have a question for Miss Riza. Yeah, her presentation about the citizen science is very, very interesting, and I would like us, and have got more information, such as did you conduct a certain training before the people can involve in the citizen science, and did you decide who can involve in that process, and maybe how can they give you the report regarding what they find, and the one of the result you present, the graphic, is that that's one of the result of that from the citizen science. I think that's so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Silva. First, there is no training that we did for citizen science. It's really just mere private individuals, concerned citizens who just wanted to send us the report. Some of them send the report through email. Some of them send reports through our Facebook page, or sometimes they send it through the Facebook page of our partners, of our conservation partners, and the conservation partners send the report and the data to us here here in the government side. So no training for that. But no, the answer to your next question is no. The graph that I showed you, it's just partially part of citizen science, because if you noticed, I showed there two logos of our conservation partners, and they are the ones who collated that data, because we are here in the metro, and the strandings are happening in an island, so there's no travel allowed, so we're just exchanging communication through email, chat, messenger, and those sorts of things. Just partially through citizen science, but it's really more on data that was gathered by the two NGOs working in El Nido, Palawan. I hope you answered your query. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Thank you, Riza. I have another question from Dr. Nora. We can give you the floor to Dr. Nora.
Right. Thank you very much. So there was some problem with the mic just now. So I would like to pose my question to Mr. Fajar. Thanks very much for the exciting presentation, and I hope Pierre Marine Park is in our city atlas in the CTISFF. But my question is, since you mentioned that you assumed that the turtles came from the Indian Ocean area, has there been any cooperation with the other other organizations working with turtles in this area? And if you could elaborate, if yes, please elaborate on that, please. Thank you.
Fahar, you may respond.
Okay, thank you for your question. So basically, there is no cooperation except our cooperation with Sumatra provinces. So that's why maybe I also call CITA ICFF, maybe WWF can help us to expand the cooperation in the Indian Ocean region, because I think it's not enough if only us with Sumatra province doing that cooperation. And if you see the correlation between our marine park or sea turtle in our marine park with Andaman Sea, it's through many areas that also may be threatened by people who maybe threat or take the turtle. So my answer is there is no cooperation except our cooperation between us and West Sumatra province, and also I ask CTICFF and WWF can help us to expand this cooperation in this area, this region. Thank you.
Thanks, Fahar. Is there any other question? So just Risa, please.
Yes, Puri, thank you again. I would just like to add, because I forgot when I spoke earlier. I would just like to inform everyone that the guidelines on marine wildlife interaction, this has now been submitted to the CMS Secretariat with the intention of it becoming one of the references in the general guidelines that the CMS is working on for marine wildlife interaction. So yeah, that's just quite an accomplishment for the Philippines. So I just forgot to share it earlier. Thank you, Puri.
Thanks, Risa. This is an important point because the implementation of the international targets on biodiversity in general is not always very well done by the countries. So having good examples on how to implement a specific objective such as this one of the CMS is really relevant and may inspire other countries. So, and I really like your presentation, as I said, because you are really connecting all the different dimensions that the policies must do in terms of really targeting the different triggers of the risks for marine turtles. So I think this is a really important point. So I don't see any other hand raised. But I just want to stress that there are new documents in the chat that are very interesting, supporting all what Christine shared with us about these new methodologies to track the illegal traffic on marine turtles, and also the marine turtle economic valuation issues. So you can just check the links. And I would like to ask Susan about maybe you can develop a little bit more, because you have been involved with this expert group that is working with the important marine turtle areas. So I think it's very interesting because there is already an interesting experience with marine mammals that you can hear about this at next session. But the model of the marine mammals inspired as well the marine turtles experts to develop something equivalent, but the context is different, the characteristics of the species are different. So maybe you can just develop a little bit more on that I'm sure this is going to be of interest for the audience.
Thank you, Puri. And yeah, it's good that you pointed out that it was based on the important marine mammal area. And for example, in the Mediterranean in 2016, there was this initiative developed to identify the important marine mammal area by IUCN Specialist Group 2 as a standard process. And since they organized regional workshop in different sea of the world to gather experts and identify those areas. And so it started in 2016, and now they moved they nearly completed the World Sea, but not really. But what is important is that from the identification of this important marine mammal area, they've got now, they managed to get those beyond a scientific exercise, which means this information is used sometimes to designate new marine protected area, but also to work with the International Marine Organization to designate PSSA, so area where boats reduce their speed to avoid collision. And I think it's in the Eastern Asia that there's some example of IMA becoming marine protected area. So that's what has been happening for a few years. And in the marine conservation, and especially around our little community of in the Mediterranean, when we were trying to really assess a strategy to protect marine turtle within and beyond MPAs, we were missing that tool. At some point, we wanted to see, but where do we need to focus our attention? And we thought about doing it just among us, but with the experience and seeing what was happening with the important marine mammal area, we thought that it was good to maybe get another international organization to take on board that process, standardize it, and then do that work in the Med. So that's why we supported the work of those criteria, because we know what are more or less the important area, but we're not sure until that standardized work is done. And that is really what is needed after to assess our work and really target, like you saw on the map, the MPA are not covering the whole of the Mediterranean, and definitely not where it's needed everywhere for marine turtle. And maybe MPA are not the answer to protect all marine turtle in the Med. They're one of the tools, but to have that really constructive, like, assessment, we need that information. So that's the next step.
So thanks, Susan. And it makes me to think that this is really a relevant tool to connect the international targets with the ground action, as you say, for the identification of new MPAs. If we are thinking now at the new proposed target of 30 by 30, so it's not just looking for a surface and putting in a map. We need criteria to establish those new MPAs until 30%. So certainly having relevant information for key species, as the group of marine turtles, is very important. And this is also relevant, for instance, for the identification of EPSAs, all the ecological and biological significant areas under the Convention of Biological Diversity. One of the key criteria is related to the specific areas for relevant aspects of the vital cycle of different species. So again, the IMAs or the IMTAs are tools that are really, really important. So we have now two new questions, one from Pablo de los Reyes. You have the floor, Pablo.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dr. Puri. I would like to pose my question to Papa Jar of Indonesia regarding the marine turtles and migratory of marine turtles. Have you ever observed any marine turtles tagged with the Philippine tag, or have you ever observed with satellite telemetry conducted by Dr. Nick Pitcher in 2017, 16 or 17. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pablo, for your question. Yeah, actually, we never found any turtle already tagged in our area. And when we conduct the research, we also compare with our DNA turtle from our marine park with DNA from Genesee turtle, and it's only small kinship between them. So we assume mostly our turtle came from Andaman. That's all, maybe my answer for you.
Thank you, Fajar. And we have another question from Feda. Feda, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Puri. Yeah, I would like to extend this question to respond what Mr. Fajar explained in his presentation. I think it's good to see Mr. Fajar with the PA Marine Park have a partnership with the provincial government, as mentioned in his presentation. If the marine turtle who laid the eggs in his MPA, it really depends on the seagrass in another area, as there is no evidence that there is some seagrass in there. I think extends the conservation action not only on the beach where the marine turtle laid, but expand to the corridor where the feeding ground is the area of improvement that we need. And I know my colleagues from the Gulf of Indonesia, Malaysia, have shared too, if the marine turtle who laid their eggs in Derawan Island in Palos, it really depends on the feeding ground in Malaysia and Philippine seagrass. So I think it's good to explore. I hear here there's Mr. Pablo and Riza from Philippines. How then our colleagues in MPA in Indonesia can have a partnership with colleagues from Philippines to see if we can have a coordination how the turtle really depends on the different habitat on where they let the egg and the seagrass where the feeding ground not only in the one country but cross border. So it's good to have more detail from Mr. Fajar how then this coordination and cooperation between MPA can be adopted not only in country but within seascape cross-border country.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Fahar or Riza, you want to respond to this or other speakers?
Yeah, I will not respond it, but thank you for your comment.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Veda. Maybe we can talk after this meeting and we discuss more how to expand our cooperation to protect sea turtle in the West Sumatra region. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Riza, and I see as well Pablo that wants to say something. So first, Riza.
Actually, it's also more of a comment. Yes, we welcome to have this cooperation among us in this region. But I have to turn over the floor to Mr. Pablo because he's the one involved in MPA establishment. The floor is yours, Pablo.
Great. Pablo?
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Risa. Actually, prior to the launching of the CTICFF, we have the Sulu-Sulawesi Seascape or the Sulu-Sulawesi Marine Ecoregion, wherein the three countries are working together for the conservation of biodiversity. And one of these subcommittee is the Threatened Species Committee, which focuses on the marine turtles or the other priority species, which include also Indonesia and Malaysia in this Sulu-Sulawesi Marine Ecoregion. Unfortunately, Malaysia has said that it is a double. We are working double working with the CTI. So the Sulu-Sulawesi Marine Ecoregion was was attached or dissolved the Sulu-Sulawesi Marine Ecoregion and attached to the CTICFF. But prior to that, we are working already, and now we are the government of Malaysia and Philippines would like to try to cooperate with the government of Indonesia to be part of the Turtle Island Heritage Protected Area, the first global transboundary marine protected areas for marine turtles. We will be discussing a little bit. We will be discussing this year. We will be resume our joint management committee meeting with the government of Malaysia, but through Sabah Parks, Malaysia. Thank you. And we are looking forward for the tri-national again for the conservation of our biodiversity. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this relevant contribution, Pablo. So we are almost at the end. We have still 4 minutes, so I will just invite the speakers if they want to say something as conclusion, and after also listening and responding to the questions of the public. So you have 1 minute each. So Susan?
Yeah, thank you, Puri. First, again, I want to thank you all, and it's great to extend the network of passionate people who are trying to protect our fragile seas and the amazing creature that lives in it. So, as we always say in MedPAN, we're stronger together. So we're looking forward for more of this exchange and building on good ideas and good enthusiasm. Thank you again.
Thanks, Susan. Risa?
Yes, thank you for this chance to share the Philippine experience. And we look forward to building more bridges within the Asia-Pacific region and maybe all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thanks to you. And Christine?
Thank you all. I appreciate you having me here today as well. And it's great to hear so much wonderful work is happening across the region, and in particular inside and outside of marine protected areas. And I'm looking forward to seeing how we can connect closely to a lot of partners here today. Thank you again.
Thanks to you. And Fahar?
Okay, thank you for all speakers and participants. So I will invite all of speakers and participants to work together. All of you can reach us through our email and then social media or website. And our dream is we can build a research and learning center in West Coast of Sumatra Islands. So that is not yet happen in that area. So in the future, maybe you can see it happen in that area with your help. Thank you.
Thank you. So thanks to all the speakers, and thanks to all the participants for your questions, your interest following this very important debate. And I hope that we will have all of you on board for future exchanges in the region and outside, because we have also participants from far away from the Coral Triangle area. So that means that it's showing clearly that this is a world target, a world objective, and a world challenge. So we need really have people well connected and sharing all this knowledge, this data, and these methodologies to work together for the best protection of the marine turtles inside and outside MPAs. So with that, we will close our session, and just remember you that in half an hour, we have our next session, which is about marine mammals protection. So it's a similar topic, but with different actors and different species. So enjoy the day. See you. Thanks.